All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down some really crucial findings about pesticide safety among maize farmers in Ghana. But we're not just here to talk about the problem. Our goal is to pinpoint clear, actionable solutions that are actually based on what the data is telling us. Okay, so let's start with a number that might surprise you. The research found a weak negative correlation between how aware a farmer is of pesticide risks and whether they actually follow safety rules. Now, what does that mean? It means that just knowing something is dangerous doesn't automatically make people safer. Simply educating farmers isn't the silver bullet we thought it was. So, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll look at what's called the compliance paradox. Then, we'll dig into why awareness just isn't enough. We'll tackle the huge issue with protective gear, or PPE. After that, we'll identify the real levers for change. And finally, lay out a clear, evidence-based path forward for all of us in policy and extension services. Let's start with this central puzzle. The data shows pretty clearly that while most farmers get that pesticides are dangerous, their actual use of safety measures is, well, it's all over the place. This is a massive disconnect, and it's exactly the kind of gap our policies have to address. So, what does this actually look like on the ground? Well, a farmer might be incredibly diligent about washing their hands after spraying, and almost all of them are, but then they'll turn right around and not wear a mask or goggles. You see the problem? Compliance is selective, and that creates a really dangerous gap between feeling safe and actually being safe. Right, so why is this happening? Why the gap? Well, as that number we saw at the beginning hinted, the answer goes way beyond just awareness. And this chart, wow, this really lays out the foundational challenge for us. Look at that. Over half of the farmers surveyed have a low overall awareness about the specific health effects of pesticide use. More than half. Any plan we make has to start from this reality. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. It's all about where the awareness gaps are. Farmers totally get the immediate, acute dangers, things like food poisoning. But the slow burn, long-term risks, like what these chemicals do to soil fertility over years or the harm they cause to vital insects, that's just not on their radar. It tells us our educational messaging is seriously missing the mark on these bigger ecological issues. And, it's not just about what people know. There are some huge practical barriers here, especially when we start talking about personal protective equipment, or PPE. This is where theory crashes into the hard reality of cost and access. Just let that number sink in for a second. 97%. This isn't a small problem. It's practically universal. For us as policymakers, this screams market failure. It's not that farmers don't want the gear, it's that they literally cannot get it where they live and work. And this chart just drills down on the why. Look, this isn't about negligence, it's about reality. First and foremost, the PPE is unavailable. If you can find it, it's often too expensive for a smallholder farmer. And even if you can get past those two hurdles, wearing heavy gear in a hot, humid climate is just miserable. Any real solution has to solve for all three of these issues. This contrast highlights a behavior that the researchers call safety ritualism, and it's a fascinating insight. Farmers will absolutely use low-cost, multi-purpose things they already have, like work boots. But buying specialized gear that only has one job, like protecting your eyes or your lungs, that's a much harder sell, because it's an extra cost for something with no other use. Okay, so we've laid out the barriers. Now for the most important part, right? What actually works? Let's look at the data to see what factors can successfully move the needle and boost safety compliance. The evidence here is just crystal clear. Formal education is an incredibly powerful lever for change. A farmer with a tertiary degree is nearly 3 times more likely to have high safety compliance than a farmer with no formal schooling. This is a massive argument for investing in rural education as a core pillar of agricultural policy. And here is another huge one: financial inclusion. A farmer who can get credit is almost twice as likely to comply with safety rules. Why? Well, it's simple. It directly attacks that financial barrier we just talked about. Credit gives them the cash they need to actually go out and buy the protective gear. But here's a counterintuitive twist, and it's a really important one for development programs. You might think that more income from other jobs would help, but nope. Farmers with off-farm income were actually 65% less likely to comply. This suggests their time and attention get divided, and farm safety just slides down the priority list. So, let's put this all together. Based on everything we've seen, what concrete steps can we, as policymakers and extension officers, actually take to make a difference on the ground? The data points us toward a really clear, multi-pronged strategy. So, here are 4 evidence-based recommendations we can build into the frameworks we already have. 1. Ditch the generic pamphlets. We need education in local dialects with visual aids and hands-on demonstrations. 2. We have to solve the PPE problem with subsidies and by developing gear that's actually breathable and designed for the climate. 3. Let's get smart with financing. Bundle microloans with the required safety inputs. Make it a package deal. And 4, we need to evolve the role of our extension agents into safety stewards, making safety a core part of every single farm visit. And all of this leaves us with one final crucial question to think about. If we know that the biggest barriers are a lack of resources and access, not just a lack of knowledge, then how must we fundamentally redesign our support systems to invest directly in the farmer and not just in the farm?